had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
This episode is brought to you by Credit Karma. When it comes to your money, Credit Karma keeps you ahead of the game. You can count on Credit Karma to keep up with your financial needs as they evolve, helping you monitor your progress and giving you personalized recommendations so you can make strides towards your goals. Make sure you're on the right track, no matter where you are on your financial journey. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on. Download today.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes three-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that fourth ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling four things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
Welcome to 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. I am your host, Brian Slagel, CEO of Metal Blade Records, home to many, many bands, including we've worked with the band that we're going to talk about today. And we're going all the way back to the early 1980s and the new wave of British heavy metal, a very important time in heavy metal that kind of resurrected it again, as it's been many times. And we're going to talk about the great song and great band Angel Witch. To do that, we're going to talk to our good friend, old friend, Mr. Bill Metoyer about the production, and Mr. Dave Hill, comedian, actor, musician, on and on and on. He's a man of many talents, and he's the one that actually picked this song. So we're going to talk to him. We have a new sponsor here at 100 Songs to Define Heavy Metal. It's the Metal Blade Museum and Store, located in Las Vegas, Nevada, right near the Strip. We have a ton of stuff in there from 43 years of Metal Blade. We've got Metallica stuff, we've got Slayer stuff, we've got Gwar, we've got Lizzie Borden, we've got tons and tons of stuff in there. We've got vinyl that you can look at for old stuff. We've got a ton of artifacts. We also have a lot of metal bands too that Metal Blade has worked with, like Deep Purple and Alice Cooper and Stars and Guns N' Roses and Thin Lizzy. So there's a lot of great artifacts there. It really is the ultimate heavy metal museum. And recently, we also have moved our Metal Blade retail store into the museum. So that's in the first part. When you first walk in, the store is there. Free to get into the store. You got to pay to get into the museum. But for more information, go to metalblade.com/museum. But of course, we're going to lead it off with our lead-off hitter up in Canada, Mr. Martin Popoff.
Definitely an important song, Brian. Angel Witch, just like your Iron Maiden, and your Black Sabbath. Very cool that they are doing this in 1980, actually same year as the Iron Maiden album. And I personally think this Angel Witch album is better than every new wave of British heavy metal album, Iron Maiden included, except for maybe Peace of Mind. So what happens here is Angel Witch issues Sweet Danger Flight 19, May 1980. And then Angel Witch comes out as a single with Gorgon on the B-side October 80, and then the album comes, the majestic Angel Witch album comes December 80. They're on Bronze. They're a trio. It's Black Sabbath doom type stuff, not as doomy as Witchfinder General will be, but just really excellent, crushing heavy metal. What a great song. Spotify plays on this are over 10 million. Very cool to see. It's the first track on the Angel Witch album with that old hellish classic painting for the album cover. What I love about this song is it's so melodic and yet very evil. It's about a witch. It's called Angel Witch, and it's got that surging little lick that Kevin puts in there. there, and it's got this rise to the chorus with the chugging in there, which just gives it some heft. Kevin told me that this song was based on an old Pink Fairies song from What a Bunch of Sweeties. There's Walk Don't Run on there, which is a Ventures instrumental, but Pink Fairies, I guess, adds lyrics, and Kevin was telling me, oh, there was something about she hit me with a broom. It's that sort of rhythm that he was going for. So if you go play that old song, it actually, you can hear the origins of Angel Witch in that song. But no, it's just a very cool, utilitarian, accessible, great song to open the album because it is melodic. It opens things up. It's not particularly doomy. Just a nice racing, great early new wave of British heavy metal song. We're at the end of the full first year of the new wave of British heavy metal, of course, 1980. Actually, I just did my last podcast episode that I just did this morning was the new wave of British heavy metal in 1979. So I went through all the 1979 stuff, but I think it starts in the spring of 1980, and this is a little late. There's a few albums ahead of it, but I think it's an absolute classic. I think it's better than the first Iron Maiden album, and I always say that for a brief moment there, Angel Witch was the cooler, better, more professional band. Both are on a major label, but Iron Maiden quickly outstripped them, while Angel Witch kind of went through lineup changes and a long time till the next album, and then it wasn't quite as good, but an absolute classic album and a great choice for a song. Angel Witch, from Angel Witch, the album Angel Witch, December 1980.
Thanks, Martin. Wow, I honestly had no idea that he was such a massive fan. I mean, massive fan of this, calling this better than the debut Iron Maiden album. There's some controversial talk right there, but always great stuff from Martin. And again, glad that we picked a song that he likes. So kudos to Mr. Dave Hill. We're going to talk to you very soon about that. But first,
they always tell you there's a catch, a compromise, an asterisk. Terms apply. See store for details. May be less than advertised. May vary by mood. Probably. Sprite Zero Sugar? It's different. It's the lemon lime flavored refreshment you want with zero sugar. So, no fast voice? No caveats. Just refreshment. This is Sprite Zero Sugar. Obey your thirst.
we bring in our old friend, a legendary producer, and now part of a record label again, too, which we'll get into that in a little bit. Our good friend, Mr. Bill Metoyer. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, Brian.
We're going to go back to the early 80s and talk about a legendary record that came out in the new wave of British heavy metal, which, of course, is, you know, really what spurned on so many of us to really get super into metal and really turned around metal, because at this point, you know, by the late 70s, early 80s, it was metal was all the bands from the 70s were pretty much gone or not really doing much of anything. It was disco and all this stuff had taken over, and even punk rock had taken over. And then all of a sudden, out of England, this whole scene comes out. And of course, you know, Def Leppard and Iron Maiden and Saxon and some of the big bands. But this was a classic release and a band that we all thought was, you know, going to kind of go the route that a lot of those other bands did, but didn't quite ever get there. Although we've worked with them at Metal Blade, but this is just a classic record. The first Angel Witch album. And of course, we're talking about the great song Angel Witch, which is a super catchy, just an incredible song. And it's one of those ones too, for me, that it stands the test of time. Like a lot of times you listen, especially new wave British heavy metal stuff, like some stuff I still love, other stuff I listen to and I go, you know, it was good for the time, but it didn't quite transcend time, but this still does.
Yeah, obviously you were the one that turned me on to all of the new wave of British heavy metal. I would have no clue who the hell Angel Witch was if it weren't for you. But yeah, when you listen to that first record, it is kind of surprising how they didn't get as big as all the other bands like Iron Maiden and Saxon. Because especially that song is always impressed the hell out of me. Just the way it starts with all the incredible guitar work and the riffing. And then the vocals come in.
Nobody else can see you the same way as myself. Fly high, touch the sky, you're the angel I adore. If only you could feel for me that I feel for you. Why do you ignore me, angel? Why can't I go with you? You're an angel witch. You're an angel witch. You're an angel witch. You're an angel witch.
And thing that I remember most is the choruses, man. It's like they sounded like Queen choruses.
It's good stuff. And they, so they got signed to Bronze Records, which was where Motorhead was at. And they got to record this record at Roundhouse Studios in London, which is where Motorhead recorded a couple of records. And Uriah Heep recorded almost all of their records. I think they recorded like 10 or 12 records there. So it was in a proper studio, which, it's the one thing about a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal stuff was not a lot of it was recorded very well. Because again, like the early days of the 80s metal scene where we were around was, they didn't have a lot of studios or doing demos or whatever, but this was a proper professionally recorded record. I think that was another thing I remember when I first heard it. I was like, wow, man, it sounds like a real record, right?
Exactly. It's like you said, a lot of things didn't sound all that great back then. But again, I had to thank you for turning me on to this band and all those other bands from the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah, that was some of the most fun time of my life when I worked at the record store there and just got to turn all these people on to all this music that I knew from England. That people in LA were like, what is this? Who is this band? And everybody just started to grow to love it, which was amazing.
Yes, back in the good old days. And I thank you for my career. That's for damn sure, man.
Well, in a large part, we can thank Angel Witch for, because they're one of the bands that certainly inspired all of us back then. And I think it's funny, we still have worked with them recently, and their bass player still works for Metal Blade in the UK, Mr. Will Palmer. So we still kind of indirectly work with them a little bit. But I think what happened to them back in the day, just everybody asks, like, why was band X not bigger? Why was the other band bigger? Or, like, why is Metallica so big? Well, it's because they're surrounded by really great people. And, great management, labels, artists, lawyers, agents, everybody. And Angel Witch never really had that. They had a good label, obviously, in Bronze, because that was where Motorhead was from, and a lot of other, at the time, they were a pretty big label in the UK, but they didn't really have a lot of those other aspects that most people need to become successful back then.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought was the reason why they never got as big. So you just explained that.
Yeah, that was it. And that was sadly the story for a lot of those bands back then. Because again, you're looking at a super underground scene. Heavy metal back then in most of the world, nobody still cared about. But this whole scene kind of came out and captured everybody. But there wasn't a lot of professional behind the scenes people that were there helping all these bands. So Iron Maiden got really lucky with getting Rod Smallwood, and some of their bands, obviously Leopard and Saxon got major label record deals and decent management and stuff. But it didn't happen to everybody. Diamond Head's another great example of a new wave of British heavy metal band that everybody thought was going to be huge. They had massive influence on of course, Metallica and everybody else. And, they never really quite got the breaks either. It's also just timing and breaks, how that stuff goes.
How did you get turned on to Angel Witch?
I got entrenched in that whole new wave of British heavy metal scene. And I started to talk to a lot of people, especially when I worked at the record store. I started talking to a lot of the distributors and just like, give me everything you have over there. And I had some pen pals, and I knew some of the record stores over there, like Shades Records was a really popular record store over there. So I started buying stuff from them just, through the mail. And that's where a lot of people over there would just say, hey, here, check out this band or check out that band. And this is one of the bands that you got to check it out. And it was kind of similar to Tigers of Pantang for me a little bit, because I knew of the band, and they had like a single or two release, but then the record comes out and you're like, whoa, this is like next level stuff. And that's kind of what happened with Angel Witch, was one of those, whoa, this is beyond what we kind of thought they would be, and so far ahead. Like you mentioned, the guitar playing and stuff. Kevin Hayborn, who's the main guy, was just a singer and guitar player, just a virtuoso guy, and just wrote this incredible record and just came out at a perfect time.
Yeah, and like I said, just those background vocals, the harmonies. That is what still blows me away, considering when the hell that record came out.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think they got a little bit lucky being able to record in a proper studio. So they were able to really do all that extra production work. And I don't know what the budget was, but again, Bronze was a fairly decent big label back then. So they had the backing of that, where so many of these other bands, the first couple of records were just on, small independents like Neat or Heavy Metal Records, the legendary labels back at the time, which were, kind of what Metal Blade became, just a small little label run by a couple people with not a lot of money. money. And so the records didn't sound super great, but this one clearly, for me, of all the records that came out right around this record came out, I thought this was production-wise, the songs are amazing, but this production-wise, I thought it was just spectacular.
Some of that stuff still holds up. I mean, I still want to hear that song, after all these years.
Yeah, it's kind of, they're still around and they're still doing shows here and there as a whole. Kevin's had some issues with visas and whatnot, so they can't play a lot of places as they probably would like to. But it's still, the stuff still kind of comes around, and there's so, still such a great love for the new wave of British heavy metal. I think a lot of that really has to do with bands like Metallica, of course, who constantly talk about the love of these bands and have covered so many bands from this era, and a lot of kids who are big Metallica fans know this is where Metallica came from and their influences came from. So they go back to kind of support and look around for all this stuff. And I know this, just talking to even Will, who kind of was in Angel Witch now. I mean, this record still does really well over there and over here too.
Well, there's so many bands that, thanks to you, is why we know about them. So you got to take credit about a lot of this stuff for sure.
I mean, look, I'm just a fan like everybody else is, and it's one of those things where it's like, I like this record, I want other people to like it. So, whether it's working at a record store or working at a label or just, social media or doing this podcast, you're trying to turn people on to music. But I do have to give huge credit to our guest this month, Mr. Dave Hill, because he was the one that suggested this song and album. And I said, what album do you want to talk about? He immediately said Angel Witch. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. They're kind of on the periphery of my list. I want to get into as much of the new wave of British heavy metal as I can because it is so important to metal. So when he said that, I'm like, okay, perfect. Let's definitely do this one. I like it.
That was a very good suggestion.
Yeah, and I had to have you on to talk about the production because you're one of the few people that were around back then. A guy like Mark Lewis was probably not even born yet.
Yeah.
At this point. So, and even Jay's a little younger too. So you were in the throes of it all.
Yes. Again, that is thanks to you.
But again, a lot of thanks to you as well, because as we've mentioned before, if it wasn't for you and Track Record, I don't know if we could have done a lot of this stuff. So it's it all worked out for the good of everybody. But yeah, this is definitely a classic record. And again, thanks to you, Bill, for doing this. Much appreciated. I'm sure we will talk to you again soon. And again, let us know about your record label.
I forgot how difficult it could be trying to run a record label.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to do. But please support them. Candle Power Records, independent music. Always support independent music. Check it out. It's a really cool compilation with a bunch of really great heavy metal bands from LA. Sounds familiar. So hopefully you guys will have similar success on it.
Don't sue us over that, huh? Okay.
I'm rooting for you. We need more record labels out there, especially independent metal record labels. I'm all for it.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Okay, now we welcome in, let's see if I can get all this right here. A comedian, a radio host, a writer, an author, a musician, and an actor. A man of many talents, obviously. Mr. Dave Hill, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Brian? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Thanks for doing this. Quick question in my research for this episode. I actually do research, believe it or not, people.
Sure.
I saw something that was very interesting to me, that you wrote John Oliver's theme song for his TV show. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. My band, Valley Lodge, we're kind of a power pop band. Yeah, it's just one of our songs, and the record had just come out, and it just worked out really nicely. They just called and asked to use it. It's awesome. I'm thrilled. Because it's a great show.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that show. I never knew. I always wondered where that came from, and I was like, oh, I actually know the guy that wrote it. That's
yeah, me.
That's impressive. I like that.
Thank you. I wish I had a few more of those.
Yeah, right. When I reached out to you about the show, I always ask the guests if you have any preference on who you want to talk to or anything, and you immediately said one of my all-time favorite songs, which I'm very happy to do, Angel Witch by Angel Witch. Where did that come from?
From the album Angel Witch.
But where did you first encounter Angel Witch in this particular song?
I don't know, like probably just kind of like poking around. You know, I'm a big fan of the Nawabum bands, if I'm pronouncing that properly.
Yep, new wave of British heavy metal. Yep, you were correct.
And I have a real soft spot. I'm a big fan, you know, being from Cleveland and all. I'm a big fan of the Underdog. I'm a big fan of bands that maybe didn't get their due or maybe really only nailed it like once or twice. Now, well, they have many great songs, don't get me wrong. But, you know, I'm kind of into the band that just kind of hit a home run.
With the one song, yeah. I mean, we actually worked with them for a long time. And
I know.
Their current bass player, Will Palmer, is also a member of the Metal Blade team over in the UK. So,
nice.
It's fun to catch up with him. Yeah. But yeah, this is one, you know, I'm really happy that you brought it up because it is one of my all-time favorite songs. It's very important because, you know, the new wave of British heavy metal, new album, as you mentioned, such an integral part of the history of heavy metal, and definitely was one of the first of many revivals we've had in metal. But, you know, as we've discussed on the show before, you know, late 70s, early 80s for metal was pretty much dead. It was all disco and nobody cared and all the big bands were old. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes this scene in England, which just explodes with hundreds of bands. And of course, we all know Iron Maiden, Saxon, Def Leppard, you know, some of the big bands that came from there. But all these other ones that were so important, you know, Diamond Head's another one, which we haven't gotten to yet on this show, but we will. But Angel Witch is another one.
Budgie.
Yeah, Budgie. That was even prior to the new wave of British heavy metal. But,
oh yeah, I guess it would be. I just kind of lump them in mentally.
Yeah, but they were definitely part of the scene for sure. But this one was, I think the one thing I remember when it first came out and I first heard it was a lot of the stuff from that new wave of British heavy metal was all independent, and you know the recordings weren't the best, but this was a pretty good recording. They were on Bronze Records, which had Motorhead and Uriah Heep and, you know, a bunch of different bands.
Yeah, good company.
But it's a great song. But also I just love the production on it too. It's very simple, but it's very straightforward metal, and it's a simple song when you listen to it, but it just works so well on so many levels.
It really does, and I think it's like a song that transcends the genre, like not just the Nawabum genre. I love to say Nawab. I'll try to throw that in as often as possible.
Please do.
But I think it transcends metal and hard rock. Like it's like in a way where it's like you hear that song. I know this to be true because I love the song, and I started playing it I had a show on WFMU in Jersey City, and I played it on that show, and my guest that night was my friend David Krumholtz, an actor, and he heard that song and was like, that song's amazing, play it again. And then we kept playing it. When the night he was on, we played it, not back to back. We probably played it 5 times over the course of 3 hours because he had never heard it before, and it was just so fun seeing how excited he got. And then it became the theme of my show. I played it at the top of every show every week. Everyone loved that song so much. Every time I hear it, it's like the first time I've heard it. I never get sick of it.
You're right. It's so good. I haven't listened to it for a while, but obviously I wanted to listen to it a few times before I did this. And I just forgot how, I mean, the whole record is so good. It's just such a great record coming kind of from out of nowhere. But this song in particular, it's so catchy. I mean, this could have easily been a radio hit if it came out at a different time with a different backing sort of thing, you know, different team around them probably. But such a great song. And certainly a lot of people, anybody that follows that scene and knows that scene, this is, you know, clearly one of the top songs.
I mean, I would love it if it were a massive hit, but I kind of root for it. The fact that it didn't get its due, kind of like what I was saying earlier. It just kind of like slipped through the cracks, you know. I mean, the band never really got its due. Yeah, it's just such a great. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I was going to say if some band magically put that song out today, I'm curious what the reaction would be.
Right? There's definitely been some covers of it, and the band's, you know, like I mentioned earlier, Will Palmer's still a bass player. They still exist. They still play shows, mostly in Europe. They've been active. You know, they were on Metal Blade for a while.
I think they're on tour right now.
They might be.
I think they maybe just finished a tour.
Yeah, they're still doing it. And this song in particular, still, if you know, even though it was never a big hit, it certainly still lives in the, you know, universe now. And a lot of people certainly stream it and listen to it. And the thing that I've talked about a lot about this show, because a lot of stuff that we talk here are, you know, older songs that really kind of began heavy metal, whether it's, you know, stuff from the 70s, you know, the 80s. And sometimes you listen to that stuff today. I think for me, more so the 80s stuff, where I listen to stuff today and I go, yeah, it was really good when it came out, but it doesn't really stand the test of time so much. And that happened even a lot in the new wave of British heavy metal scene, where I'll go back and I'll go, I mean, there's still a lot of stuff I love, but there's other stuff that I was super into when it came out. Now I'm like, it's still good, but it just doesn't work today. But this song is not that way at all. I listened to it the other day and it still sounds fresh and new.
Totally.
And like it could have come out now.
Yeah, it's timeless. I mean, and again, it doesn't have any like production on it that really like pins it to, you know, it doesn't have some crazy like gated snare or anything like that. You know, it doesn't have any weird like chorus on the rhythm guitar or anything like that, even though I'm a fan of that. But it's just kind of timeless, awesome, and just that opening riff, it's insane, and it's hard. It's hard to play.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because, you know, I don't play guitar, but I understand it's difficult to play. And you play guitar, so I was going to ask you, how difficult is that to play?
It's kind of like, on the one hand, it's simple, but then it's not. It kind of like, it's idiosyncratic. It kind of does like a few weird things that like you can't really just go on autopilot and play. At least I can't. I'm sure there are many people that could, but I got asked to, like, there's a show my buddy Pat Byrne here in New York, a hilarious comedian and also musician, does this show where comedians do sets and then play a song, and he's like, we've learned Angel Witch, so you can play Angel Witch. And I was like, I'm like, I hate to disappoint you, but I can't play it. Really, like, I could embarrass myself with it, but I can't, you know, that. I'm sure if I sat down for an hour, I could do it, but maybe I was just being lazy, but it's hard.
Like normally kind of songs begin a certain way with, you know, power chords or, you know, however but this is like this whole almost lead style riff. But the weirdness for me is, and the uniqueness of it is that it sounds like it's a lead, but it's actually the beginning of the song, and it's interwoven in the song as well. And it makes sense, and the song's so catchy.
Yeah, it's an insane intro riff. Yeah, and it is such a hook. Like I'm trying to even think of the actual solo to the song right now, and I can't really. I mean, because it has that, and then it has that other great hook, like and then it goes up an octave. It's so badass. But yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like, what's the guitar player, Kevin Hayborn? It's kind of this weird lick, like kind of like in the way that like Jakey Lee does all these things where you're like, okay, I know what he's doing. And then you try it and you're like, no, I don't know what he's doing. Like he does all these weird things that people don't do. Both of them.
That's a great analogy because, yeah, Bark at the Moon has that sort of like fast riff that begins that song.
Yeah, that outro, like, and like, I recently learned that because I was like, why haven't I learned how to play this? And then I watched the Back to the Beginning concert when Nuno Betancourt played, and I'm like, all right, I gotta sit down and learn this. And then I did, and it's so hard, like, to even play it like Jakey Lee, like, it's just insane the way he does it. There's like cheating ways to play it, which I opted for.
Yeah, he's an amazing guitar player, and he was around, you know, in the early 80s when I was working at the record store. He used to come in and hang out at the record store, so I know for a fact that he knows who Angel Witch is. And I'm not saying that influenced his writing on Bark at the Moon, which he did write, by the way.
I know there's some debate, isn't there?
He definitely wrote it. I heard demos even beforehand.
No, I know he did. I read this recently, either an interview with him or Warren DeMartini, where when they were roommates, they were like sitting watching TV, and one of them was like kind of hashing out Bark at the Moon. The other one was hashing out Round and Round.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, that's a pretty cool apartment.
Right? That would be pretty fly on the wall there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know Jake was into this stuff because, like I said, he used to hang out at the record store and bought some of that stuff too. But it's interesting you mentioned that because now that I think about it, it is very similar. And that was, I think, the unique thing for me because, when you listen to stuff, I mean, maybe probably some Blackmore stuff probably has similar beginnings to songs. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but he's that type of player. But this was definitely a unique song. And like I said, the other thing for me about listening to it back was, aside from the guitar parts, it's a very simple song. It's very simple. The riffs are simple. It's, verse, chorus. The chorus is super catchy. And it's interesting because it's that dichotomy of this really intense, difficult guitar lead into the song. And then the rest of the song's just a very simple classic metal song.
Yeah, totally. And even I was reading the lyrics last night because I was like, I really need to do a deep dive on this. And the lyrics are, he's like, wants this woman to be into him. And so he's like, the whole time, like, come on. And then you're an angel witch.
Is it a witch?
Yeah, like, but then he blows it by calling her an angel witch. Unless she is, in fact, a witch, which he wouldn't be offended. Also, I'm a big fan of the hat trick of this song being named after the band from a self-titled album, which is, always a good move.
But you're right. That is the hat trick. I didn't really think about that, but I don't think there's a lot of that. There's Black Sabbath, I guess.
Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, right?
Yeah, Iron Maiden. Although, no, the record, I guess the record was technically called Iron Maiden. It was just self-titled, but yeah, so you're right. Same thing with this.
Is Motorhead also?
I'm trying to think. I mean, they had a song of Motorhead. I'm trying to think if they had. I think, yeah, they had a record just called Motorhead as well. Yeah, you're right.
But I don't know I can't remember if it's on that album.
Our producers chiming in, Bad Company. Another good one. Yeah.
Bad Company.
So where and when did you first get into heavy metal?
I don't think of Led Zeppelin as a metal band, but...
Well, but they're the origins of metal. I look at it because I talk a lot about on the show is, we talk about, Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Alice Cooper and Thin Lizzy and, all those 70s bands because that's the ground base of where heavy metal started.
Yeah.
And even though those bands might not call themselves heavy metal, they influenced so many people, and there's not any band, no matter whether they're a 20-year-old death metal band or a 50-year-old progressive metal band, that aren't influenced by all those bands.
Definitely, like Zeppelin. Like my dad brought home, he was always like jazz and classical, but somehow, and he's 93, he's still like super into Zeppelin, and he brought home Led Zeppelin 4, and I just have such memories of, before that it was just like whatever was on the radio or whatever my older sisters or brother were bringing into the house. That was like, I didn't really have any of my own music really. So I like when I was around 7 or something, he brought home Led Zeppelin 4, and it was the first thing I ever heard that I was like scared by it. Like not like scared like I don't want to hear it. I was like, it was the first thing I heard where I was just like, whoa, this is bigger than, it's not just 4 guys playing. It was just like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And it was just like, and just even the cover, like that didn't have their name on it, just some old guy with sticks on his back. I was like, what is going on? Like I was like kind of genuinely afraid to be alone with it, like with the art, but in a way that I loved it, you know what I mean? Kind of like when I discovered like spicy food or something as a kid, where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is, because I grew up in a very no spicy food in the house family, and then I discovered it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, It was kind of like that with Zeppelin, and then, getting into Black Sabbath, and then I think probably from there, Judas Priest and Maiden, and for me, I love those first 3 Def Leppard records and Motorhead and all that, and then it's kind of off to the races, really. But I've always been like, I guess another food analogy, but omnivorous with music in a way that, especially my buddy Tim Parnan, who is now the vice president of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it just goes to show you, kids, being into music can pay off. But we were both like always going to see everything, and we were the only 2, of our friends that were like going to see the Replacements. Then we'd see Rat, then we'd see Iron Maiden, then we'd see ZZ Top, and Psychedelic Furs or whatever. We were just kind of go see everything, and we were equally psyched about all of it. But kids were like, "What? What?" You know. So it's just kind of, and then just like going to the record, you know, same as anyone, like going to the record store and you go and check out. I mean, I remember like as a, you know, Catholic schoolboy, you go and you find like the Venom records and you're like, whoa, I can't even, I should need to wash my hands after I touch this album. I'm going to get in trouble.
It's always the stuff that you're not supposed to hear or play, that rebellious, especially as you're younger, you naturally drawn to that sort of stuff.
Yeah, totally. You know, it's funny though, as we were talking though, I maybe we've talked about this before. I always find especially metal fans or metal musicians are always are the biggest music nerds, like, and are into the most stuff. Where, you know, it's kind of like the opposite of what people think. Like, you know, I think if people know you're into metal, then they think, oh, you're only listening to metal all the time. Or some of my friends are like that anyway. And then I'm like, no, it's just like, be like if I were into like chicken wings, doesn't mean I only eat I don't know why I keep making food analogies, but you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think it's interesting when the stigma of metal, I mean, lucky enough to be in this scene, it's just, everybody's really great. Like there are few people that aren't really cool. And yeah, you're right. Like if you talk to musicians, I'm not a musician. I do listen to other stuff, but you know, probably 99% of the stuff I listen to is hard rock metal stuff, or mostly 70s, 80s sort of things. But if you talk to musicians, and a lot of these bands, the heavier the bands, they're more like, yeah, you know, I love classical, I love jazz. And the one thing that I've discovered on this show that really kind of blew me away, and it's more so from drummers than anybody else, is because, you know, metal came from the blues, and certainly there's a massive classical element to it too. But jazz is one thing that keeps coming up, especially with drummers. Dave Lombardo was on the show early on, and he mentioned, you know, growing up and listening to jazz, and that's kind of how a lot of his style of play came about. And I've heard that heard so many musicians talking to them on this program mention that I find that fascinating. I never really thought about it. Then you think about it, oh, that makes sense, actually.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, they both can be like pretty challenging listening. Neither one of them are genres. There certainly is like right up the middle versions in both genres, you know, or very, very accessible versions. But like jazz and metal, like there's stuff that I think that's part of the fun of it, of both music, be like, how can I wrap my head around this? And like also, you know, you listen to one band and it gets you ready for the next thing, and gateway bands or whatever.
100%. You're right on with all of that stuff. So tell me what you've got going on these days.
I am doing some shows this fall, some headlining shows of my own, and then I've been opening up a lot lately for Bill Murray and his Blood Brothers. Bill Murray, the Bill Murray that we think of when we say Bill Murray.
Is there anybody else? Come on.
He has a band with Mike Zito and Albert Castiglia and Jimmy Vivino and a bunch of other amazing musicians. I've done a bunch of the shows with them this past year, and we're going to do a handful more like next month. So I'm super psyched. I go out and I open up and I do comedy and music together, and then watch them, and they usually have me come out and play with them a little bit during their show. So I'll be doing that, and then I'm going on tour opening for Pussifer.
Oh, awesome.
Next year.
Music and comedy, or?
Yeah, I'll do kind of my smorgasbord, how we say that. I mean, basically it's comedy, but I play guitar. It's half an hour of jokes is an hour of jokes if you rip guitar solos in between. Yeah. It's my cheat that I'm not telling anyone what.
That's amazing. How did that come about?
I'm friends with Maynard Keenan. He was on tour with Primus and A Perfect Circle and Pussifer, I think maybe over the summer, and they had a couple days off in New York, and he had a little get together, and I had too much to drink, as I recall.
Wine, I'm thinking?
Yes. Well, yeah, it's completely his fault.
Yeah, that's the only thing you drink with Maynard is wine.
Yeah, he brought a bunch of his wine, so just out of politeness, I drank a tremendous amount of it.
Of course.
But I remembered at one point he's like, "Oh, do you want to go on tour next year?" And I woke up the next day and I was like, I don't remember probably the last third of the evening except this one sentence that he asked me about. And so I texted him. I was like, "Hey, was that for real?" And he said, "Yeah." So I'm like, "All right, I'm holding you to it." So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And it's going to be the whole country. like March, April, May. So that, yeah, I'm doing that, and then some other stuff that I think's happening, but I don't know yet. And then my first ever comic book series, Dark Regards, just came out, 4 issues on Oni Press. It's based on the real life story of literally 20 years ago. I don't know why. I just started emailing black metal bands, and I accidentally emailed a black metal label in Oslo and said I had this band Witch Taint. And it was back and forth. You can read all these emails at the blackmetaldialogues.com. That's sort of the origin story of this thing. So the comic book series is kind of loosely based on that whole thing. And then it'll be out as a graphic novel, I think, early next year. And then a new season of Axe Lords, my guitar podcast, with Tom Beaujeur and Cindy Huledge, which we've had a lot of great. Alex Skolnick was on it. We've had metal and not metal. We've Warren Haynes, Lita Ford. They're all in the new. Oh, Alex Skolnick was first season, but lots of folks on that. So yeah, I think I'm probably forgetting things that I'm up to, but those are things that come to mind. It's fun to do things. I mean, that's part of it.
You do so many things and a variety of things. It's amazing.
I need to do less things.
Keeps you busy, right? And where can they find you, socials and all that sort of stuff?
All my socials, I think, are at Mr. Dave Hill, at Mr. Dave Hill. And my main one is Instagram, pretty much. That's where I tend to try to stay away from the other ones because they get me into trouble.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all on that. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this. This is really great.
Thanks for having me. I hope I did Angel Witch by Angel Witch from the album Angel Witch Justice. I actually met, I should have mentioned this. I met, I think he's in the current lineup. I messaged with him, I should say. But I heard from one of the guys, Tom Draper, who I think played with Carcass and is an Angel Witch, I think currently. Anyway, so that was a great thrill for me to receive he's not an OG Angel Witch member, but.
Yeah. Like I said, Will's in the band, and I'll make sure, I'll make sure Will hears this. Of course, he'll listen to it, but I'm going to make sure that Kevin Hayborn listens to it as well, so I get his feedback. We'll know from the man himself.
Oh, I'll be honored. Well, I got to get a guitar lesson from him. I forget what city they're from. They're from. Are they from like the Midlands?
Yeah, somewhere there. But Kevin, I forget where he's living now. He's not living in the UK anymore. He's living, I don't know, like Switzerland or something. Somewhere else. I can't remember where it was. But Will was telling me about that. So
sweet.
All right, there you have it. Angel Witch's song, Angel Witch. Great track. If you have not heard that track, please go out and check it out. Classic metal from the early 80s. Great stuff. And still, like I said before, timeless. It's a timeless classic. It still sounds really great today. Huge thanks to Mr. Dave Hill for being on the show and picking the song as well. Very important part of that. Mr. Bill Metoyer, Mr. Martin Popoff, Lizzie Borden for our theme music, and as always, the man that makes everything go, producer Christian Blatt. We will talk to you guys in the next episode.